Some stories are meant to be told, not just be heard, but to be felt. They remind us that even in the darkest moments, there is resilience, that healing is possible, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is face our past to reclaim our future. Robert Goodland knows this journey well. As a firefighter, paramedic, and survivor of both childhood trauma and a near death experience beneath the ice, his story is one of unimaginable challenges and profound transformation. In his memoir, Beneath the Surface, Robert takes us through a life shaped by pain, perseverance, and the path to healing. Now, as an equine gestalt practitioner, he uses the power of horses to help others confront their past and step into a life of clarity and healing. Today, Robert joins me on the Backyard Horse Enthusiast to share his journey, his struggles, his turning points, and the incredible work he does to help others find their own path to healing. This is a conversation about courage, hope, and about the power of horses in our healing journeys. Now let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Backyard Horse Enthusiast, Robert Goodland, author, certified equine gestalt practitioner. I think you're a master gestalt practitioner as well. My goodness.
Thank
My
you. It's a pleasure
goodness.
and honor to be here.
So happy to have you here to share so much with us, with my viewers, that if you haven't read the book yet, Beneath the Surface, you best go get it now. There is a link in the description box to directly link you to the book, and you can also scan that QR code that's floating above Robert's head, and you can go right to his website and get even more information on the work that he's doing. And without further ado, my friend, let's jump into it. Your book, Beneath the Surface, is a deeply personal and courageous account of your life. What inspired you to finally share your story with the world?
Mm, Thank you for that. It was a slow process. While I was in school learning to be a coach, my mentor, our mentor, Melissa Pierce from Touched by a Horse, suggested that I write the story. And so that was the first time that I had kind of considered writing it. I am not a writer. I am now. Um, I did not consider myself a writer, so it was kind of jumping into the deep end of the pool. I didn't know how or how to go about doing it. And so, but so it started about 5 years ago that I began writing it. And it was a journey. The first very rough manuscripts were very different from what is eventually now in Beneath the Surface because I was learning so much about myself through the writing process and processing the things that had happened throughout my life. How was I viewing it? How had it impacted my life? How had it impacted my relationships from my
Mhm.
kids to my partners to, my work at the time. And so yeah, so the first little inkling, the first little nudge came from Melissa to
Of
start
course.
writing. And then, she connected me with an editor and things like that, which I desperately needed, and it was well worth that too. But yeah, so that's where it started.
Wow. And
And
so well done.
Thank you. And I would also say that by the time I got to that point, I really felt like this was something that needed to come out.
Mm,
I had started sharing about my sexual assault openly long before the book. I hadn't really processed any of that assault, but I was starting to openly share about it. And I started, anytime that I did, I got private messages or even public messages from people that felt empowered to share that they too had been sexually assaulted. Some people said, "I've never shared this before. I've never said this out loud."
mm,
And so part of the book, what it became was permission. It became permission for other people to tell their story. The way that I view this is, and I'm grateful for the feedback that Beneath the Surface has been getting. Some people out there are not going to resonate with my story. They're going to resonate with your story. They need to hear your story. And if me telling my story gives permission for somebody else to begin telling their story, there's somebody in their world that needs to hear their story. And so that's when the book finally launched, that was really where I was at with the whole thing was, please tell your story. Somebody needs to hear it.
yes. And there
So,
were so many moments, Robert, in that story, for me, that caused such deep reflection,
mhm,
not just the sexual
mhm,
assault, as I too
mhm,
experienced, um, so many other moments that caused me to have to literally put the book down and just jarred memories,
mhm,
things that I had buried so well, even after having gone through this program that's so
mhm,
deep, anyways. I was like, oh my gosh. So even if a reader doesn't resonate with that particular, there's so much more in your book that from relationships, from childhood, other types of traumas that
mhm.
cause that deep kind of reflection, which is a good thing. I felt like the book was so cathartic for me because it gave me the opportunity to actually process
Mhm.
those things that and other things that you explained in there that it was like, oh my gosh, I never put that and that together, and no
Mm,
wonder. So
thank you.
that's what I mean when I say your book had such a profound effect on me.
Thank you.
Oh my
I
gosh.
appreciate hearing that. Thank you very much.
And it was more than even that. And as I have explained to you, the reading flows so beautifully. It's a book you don't want to put down. You don't want it to end either, right? And it's got it's got so many great moments in it. Um,
That's,
I just I wish I had the book right here, like I'd hold it up, but actually I take that book with me when I do my vendor fairs and
oh,
different events in my tent. It's out on the table with the
oh,
books that
bless
I am
you.
recommending. So
Thank you for that.
that is one of them.
Thank you
I
for
thank
that.
you. I thank you for jumping on that journey. That's not easy. I've been writing my memoir for years now, and it's kind of stalled. And I think
Mhm,
too, I probably need someone else to, like a Melissa right now, or a you, or any other gestaltist, to because memories get uncovered,
oh,
and
yeah.
the processing of those memories has to happen so that you're done with them once and for all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I ran into in it, I began to notice the pattern. I would
Mm,
get stalled, as you said, and sometimes I would get stalled for 3 or 6 months,
mm,
and I would have to walk away from it. And I began to notice that every time I was getting stalled, it was at a very difficult point in the book, and I was having the same questions in my mind. I think that I understand my feelings and emotions until I have to articulate those feelings and emotions. So there were a lot of points in the book that I had to walk away from it. And my thought process was, I don't know how to write this so that you, the reader, can understand what it is that I'm feeling at that moment in the book. I don't know how to convey it. I know the feeling. I don't know how to put it in words so that you can understand it. And sometimes, like I said, it took 3 to 6 months of, and then all of a sudden it would come and it would start to flow again. And I learned to just embrace the process, not judge it, not judge the pause, not judge any of that, and just, okay, this is where we're at. Um, and,
Yes.
but yeah, I too had a lot of, there were parts, even specifically in with the sexual assault, that I didn't understand. I didn't have all of the pieces. The way I describe it is they were fragmented memories. And because they were fragmented, I was judging myself
Oh.
on some of the information. And like, well, I was basing the opinion on because I didn't have the information. Once I got it all written, there were some huge ahas. I'm like, oh, this is how this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand that, but once I had it all out on paper and then going through the editing process, some of those really, really big aha moments came. So just the mere act of writing it was very cathartic. It was very I processed to another level the things that I've been processing for years, especially since, being in the program that we're in. And but yeah, just it kind of took it to a new level by exploring it that deeply, by exploring beneath the surface.
Sure. And it really came through
Thank
in the
you.
book. It
Yeah.
truly did. And that's it helped me put pieces together as well for my own journey,
Well,
my own trauma.
that's
And
very cool.
that's a beautiful thing when you can read something like this. It's so readily available and help yourself at the same time,
Mhm.
you know?
I had a phone call from one of the early readers, one of the first ones right after the book came out. And her comment was, thank you for normalizing how I felt. And I'm like, wow, what a gift that was.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
for me to hear that, from her.
Sure.
The other really beautiful gift was I gave my girls the opportunity to read the manuscript before it went to print because obviously they're in there and
Right.
apprehensive. These are my kids and I don't want to do anything to hurt them in the process of telling my story. I don't want to do it, yeah, anything that hurts them. And so my oldest daughter was like, yeah, I want to read it. And instantly I'm like, ooh, you know, and then I didn't hear from her for about 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm like, ugh, she's mad. And then she called, and boy, as soon as I picked up the phone, she was just like, blah, 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 blah. She says, I couldn't put it down. This is such a great book. I'm so grateful. And then she said the magic words. She said, I knew all of these things, but I didn't understand the timeline. And she
Mhm.
said, I feel like I understand my father at a whole new level.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, well, there was the entire reason for writing the book.
What a gift. What a gift for you,
Everything
for
else
them.
is icing. Yeah, that was a beautiful. So thank you, Nikki. I appreciate that very much.
Wow. I
But
have a
yeah,
Nikki too.
yeah. So from there on out, I'm like, well, there was the time, the effort, the money, everything that went into writing the book. There, that's why I did it, because my child can say, "Oh, I understand you better." Oh,
And it's healing for them as well.
yeah, it was just wonderful. So thank you, sweetheart.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Robert, surviving a near drowning during ice diving training became
Mhm.
a pivotal moment in your healing journey. Can you take us back to that moment and share how it changed your perspective on life and trauma recovery?
Mhm. The drowning did really throw open the door to the need. I had things in my past, like the sexual assault and many other things that hadn't been processed well or at all. And the time after the drowning, probably for at least the first year, and I'm going to say pretty solidly into the second year after that accident, which was 2007. And it forced me, because everything fell apart. Everything fell apart. Every relationship fell apart. My I didn't know if I was going to be able to go back to work at the fire department. Um, the relationship that I was in at the time was kind of already not doing well, and that just cratered it. And partly because I didn't know how to show up. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand a post-traumatic stress injury and what that looks like. I just truly thought I was losing my mind. I'm not, I'm the one that isn't handling this correctly. I had other people outside of me saying, what's the big deal? Why are you making a big deal out of this? And so, which were already the things that were going on in my head. So now I had that external validation to the internal voice, the internal critic. I didn't know what to do. And so when I started to seek help, um, suicidal ideation was very close because the drowning did take me all the way to that point of peace. And it was a very profound peace. And my view at the time was I had been saved to chaos, to complete chaos. My entire life was now in chaos because I was saved.
Mhm.
And so for probably the first year after the accident, it's like, well, I can just go back to that because I know what that's like now. I know what that place looks like. I can go back to that. And so fighting that and then starting to seek out help. And I did modalities, I did EMDR, I did, the therapist and all this kind of stuff. And so it forced me to look at these things in my past and what was all the other unfinished business. The other thing that it did, because I didn't know if I could go back to work at the fire department, and I just gotten my horses probably 2 years before the accident. And the horses were the only place that I felt safe. I had two horses at the time. It was the only place that I could go, and I didn't feel judged. I didn't have to show up in a certain way. I could just go be with them, and I could cry if I needed to cry. I could curse if I needed to curse. I could, I wasn't judged. And I ended up winning a class like within a month after the accident. I won a class with an organization that teaches horsemanship. And so late summer, early fall of 2008, I took that class. And I was still not sure I could go back to work at the fire department. The thought of being trapped in a burning building, which I know is different than being trapped under the ice, but my brain was gonna think it was the same thing. And that was terrifying. The thought that this could happen, I could get entangled in something. I could kill my crew if I don't handle this right. And so I really was doubting if I could go back. And I thought, well, I got around the horses and then I started learning about horsemanship and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, well, maybe I can do that. Maybe that's what I can do for a living. So anybody that thinks they can make a living training and teaching horsemanship, please don't. Um, you'll go broke. But it got me in proximity to the right people. So I did end up becoming a professional. I did go back to work and I did continue that path and I did become a professional horsemanship instructor and did some horse training and things. Doing that put me a couple years later teaching a clinic, put me in contact with one of our herd mates who said, "You need to look at this class." She said, "I think it would help you, but I think you'd make a good coach. You should look at it." And I got too much on my plate, just getting back to, I'd only been back to work for maybe a year or two at that point. And then 2 years later, when she was graduating, she came back and said, "No, you really, really need to look at this." And so I retired from the fire department in 2016. And then 2018, I enrolled in our coaching program in Touched by a Horse. So without the accident, I don't pursue teaching horsemanship because I needed to figure out how to put food on the table. By doing that, it put me in proximity to the people that ultimately led me to Melissa program, which has now led to everything else. So it was kind of on a couple different fronts. It was a very personal journey of I needed to do my own healing. And because the way the universe lined up all the dots, it put me in the right place at the right time with the right people.
Yeah.
To now ultimately be doing what is just a massive passion project for me, and being able to coach and help people through their own traumatic experience. So yeah, the diving accident was the turning point. It was the pivotal moment when it's a great
Almost a
example. Go ahead.
No, almost a divine intervention, as
Completely.
catastrophic as it was. It was like,
Yep.
you know what, Robert? This is divine slapping you upside the head, right?
Completely.
Sometimes that has to happen. It's
Yep.
awful,
And
but
it truly comes down to how did I want to view it?
Mhm.
Because I could have stayed with this was horrible. My life will never be the same. I'm going to have panic attacks for the rest of my life. I'm going to be claustrophobic for the rest of my life. I'm going to, you know, I was treated unfairly. I could have stayed there. I chose not to. And that accident is a blessing in so many ways. Not saying I want to go back and do it again, right? I don't trap me under the ice again.
No.
But the thing was a blessing. It truly was. I can sit with veterans, I sit with first responders, I sit with law enforcement who are my incident, whether it's a sexual assault or the diving accident, the actual circumstances are different for me, for you, for whoever I'm sitting on. The aftermath and how it shows up in our lives, that gets pretty similar. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Without that accident, without the post-traumatic stress disorder, now injury diagnosis that I got, without that, I don't have a frame of reference when I sit with a client, whether it's in the first responder or a veteran, whether it's somebody in early recovery that's dealing with abuse issues. I mean, post-traumatic stress takes many forms and comes in it lands from many different directions. The aftermath is similar. The nervous system responds a certain way. I have a frame of reference, and for that, I am grateful. The sexual assault is the exact same thing. So many of my clients, the vast majority of my clients, have all had their sexual boundaries violated, men and women. I have a frame of reference because of that incident with me. I am grateful for it. I truly am, because it
Oh,
allows me to be able to do what I'm doing from a place of understanding. So
amen.
how do I look at my life today and say, I love my life, but I wish those things wouldn't have happened. Those are the things that created my life. I'm grateful for it all. I'm grateful for
Thank you. And it is a very liberating feeling and stance to
it.
take. And I often bring that up in my inner child healing groups that, you can choose to either remain a victim
Mhm.
of this, or you can allow it to empower you. You now have embodied knowledge where
Yeah.
you have awareness and compassion and empathy for others. So let's treat this as a gift.
Mhm.
Same.
Yep.
Because if I didn't view life that way now, I would be a very bitter, ugly human being
Yep.
inflicting pain on other people, right? A prickly cactus is what I would be. I don't want to be that. So I thank the gift of my life and what I've been through, the experiences. Absolutely.
I wrote about it in Beneath the Surface, and there's, if you remember, I was referencing my friend Sean, and he summed it up really, really well when he just looked at me and he said, "You know, you've been in training, right? All of those past events that were really hard, those were your training sessions for what you're about to do." And I'm like, wow, that's an empowering way to look at that.
For sure. And for
I've been
me, the
training.
belief, I believe that my soul contracted with the family that I was born into to take this exact path.
Mhm.
And that is liberating as well. It's so freeing. It's like, yep, I know my soul made a choice to come
Yeah,
here and do experience all of this so that I could be exactly where I am right now.
yeah. I'm so grateful. And
Hmm.
obviously, you know, after the accident, I mean, the diving accident really set a before and after in my life. And I became much more appreciative.
Sure.
What I've said ever since the accident, that day I was given back the gift of time. What am I going to do with it? It was given back to me.
Mhm.
And
Definitely.
this is how I'm choosing to give back that gift of time or to use my gift of time.
Hmm.
And it feels good. I enjoy it. It's very soul fulfilling. I love walking with people in their journeys. I'm not the expert in their life. I am simply a coach. I walk beside people as they discover their own
Yeah.
dreams.
Yeah.
And man, what a great way to spend my time. What a
I
great
can
way.
attest.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I can
yeah,
attest.
yeah.
You've been sober for over 4 decades, which is an incredible achievement, Robert. What were the most valuable tools or mindsets that helped you stay on this path?
Yeah, tools. Well, you know, 42 years,
Wow.
the tools have changed
Mm,
for
I'll
decades.
bet.
Um, what I had, what I knew, what I understood and what I thought I understood 42 years ago, 41 years ago, you know, when I was in early recovery. I think at the time there was a lot of, now I had the gift, I had the benefit of time to look back. I had a lot of tie knot in the end of the rope and hang on. Um, my mom was very, very proud of my sobriety. She didn't want me to go at first. And after I was sober, she was very proud of that.
Mhm.
And she would send me a birthday card every year on my sobriety birthday. For years, she did that. I vividly remember times that I thought about relapsing, I thought about using. I didn't want to look my mom in the eye and lie because
Mm,
there's no way I could tell her that if I would have relapsed, there's no way it would have broken her heart. And so there were times they say you can't get sober for another person, and I do agree with that. I also believe that there are times that I can stay sober in that moment
mhm.
for somebody else. And I did more than once because I didn't want to disappoint my mom.
Mm,
And so that was a tool. Um, I still have a lot of outlets, creative outlets that fill my soul from music to, I do enjoy writing and I'd written some poetry and stuff years ago and never really did anything with it. This Beneath the Surface was the first novel that I've written. I've done some short essays for magazines and different things around horsemanship, but the book was the first time doing that. But I've always, I've always looked at my world from a point of view of where is that coming from within me? And so staying sober and the journey of sobriety isn't just, for me, alcohol was my drug of choice. It's not just staying dry, it's creating a life.
Mm.
And it's doing my best to show up in the world better today than yesterday. So, what tools do I need? What do I need to learn about myself so that I can show up better? I do make mistakes. I don't always show up well. And then I have to go back and clean it up, learn whatever it is that I needed to learn to not do it that way again. All of those tools have been slowly built over 42 years of discovery of who I am. Where do these things come from? How do these old injuries, the unfinished business of my past, how do they show up? What luggage am I tripping over in my living room? Because I just would pack these things up in a suitcase and then leave the suitcase sitting out in the living room. And pretty soon I'm tripping over them in this relationship or with my kids or whatever. Recognizing that I'm tripping over some unfinished business, having the courage to dig into it. And so the tools to stay sober were just, I would say, if I was going to boil it down, I needed to learn about me because alcohol was a way for me to escape.
Mhm.
And we use it because it works. And it works really well until it doesn't and it starts to take from us. But I was using it to get away from something. What was I trying to get away from? That's where the work is. Do the work. You don't have to escape. And I wish I could tell you that I just knew that. I didn't. That's something that's just been developing over the years. Learning that it's the unfinished business that I'm trying to medicate. It's the pain and the suffering and the hurt and the betrayal and the
Of course.
abandonment and all of those things. That's what I was trying to medicate with
Sure.
alcohol.
And that was
So,
your drug of choice. And for many people, it doesn't have to be alcohol. It could be actual
no,
drugs. It could be sex. It could be shopping. It
gambling,
could be
yeah,
eating.
yep, yeah. So what is it that I'm trying to escape? What are the emotions
Mm-hmm.
that I'm trying to leave behind or
Mm-hmm.
cover up or not look at? What are those?
Right.
Because the answer to how to not use is in eliminating the reason we did use.
The trigger.
Yep.
The trigger. And it's allowing that trigger to have a voice. You bring it up, you thank it, and tell thanks. What are you trying to show me? Tell me. What do I need to look at in this moment right now?
Yep.
And do
And
it with grace.
yeah, and do it with some compassion,
Yes.
self-compassion.
Yes.
And I think another big piece of that, we all have habits. I mean, we are where we are for good and for maybe not so good because of our thinking habits, our behavioral habits. So if I want something different, I have to change those patterns. And for me, a lot of those were thought patterns. My brain would, this is what we do. This happens, we go here, we have this emotion. Sadness is my home emotion, and this is what we do. And this is how I talk to myself. This is how I present my words to the world. And words do not describe our reality, words create our reality. What patterns do I need to change? And what happens if I do? How does that work? If I run around always thinking I'm immersed in abundance, how does that begin to change my view of the world? And then I started to learn about the reticular activating system and how important that is. And like, oh, that's why this works. Because I'm telling my internal search engine what to look for. So whether we're
Right.
writing gratitudes or whatever, but that's a tool. I needed to change my mental habits, and which then in turn changed my behavioral habits. I needed to learn to show up differently if I wanted a different result.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm the
Which
one
is,
who's been working on it.
I
Mhm,
think that's why Melissa has us touch on neurolinguistic programming.
right.
I went a step further. I got certified in it because
Mhm.
that was stood out. So, oh
It's a
my
game
God,
changer.
it
It is a
certainly
game
is.
changer. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many
Yeah.
things we learned in school, from parts of self work to the NLP to there's so many things that she brought to us that were just,
Gems.
yeah,
Absolute gems.
absolute gems. And
Every
they changed my world.
Yes. Yes, mine as well. And
Yeah.
I joke all the time, and I've joked with Melissa. I'm like, you're the reason I don't have enough bookshelves and I have to put things in storage because every time she would bring, if Melissa said, you should really read this book, I'd read it, and then that would lead to something else, to something else. And then
Yeah.
oh no, she just brought up another one. I have to get it. I got to read it. And here we
Yeah.
go. And that
You're heading down the rabbit hole.
absolutely. I'm like, she's like what, Charles Schwab or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If,
Yep.
oh, when Melissa speaks, we all stop and go, what?
What?
Okay, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the
Yep.
woman is embodied wisdom with so much.
Yeah.
She lives it, breathes it, and has been
Yep.
doing it for so long that I'm
Yeah.
like, you would be foolish if she is giving you those beautiful gems. Grab them.
Grab them. Yep.
Don't ignore them. Oh my gosh. We're
Yeah.
so
So
blessed to have her in
I
our
am.
lives.
Yep. I'm so grateful. My life is profoundly better. And even if I never would have become a coach, just taking the program and
Hmm.
doing my personal work with Melissa, that was remarkable. Yeah,
Hmm.
that was absolutely
Yeah.
remarkable. And so the
Yes.
beautiful thing, and I still sometimes I'll have that really profound client that comes through my arena, and as they're driving out the driveway, I'm texting Melissa going, "You touched another one," you know.
And that's what she's wanted. She's always conveyed that message to all of us. I think she knew and knows that this just spreads. So as she
Yep.
teaches us and we embody this and then we share that, it just keeps spreading.
Yeah. And it's how do we, for her, I'm sure I'm putting words in her mouth, but how did you expand your reach? How do we touch more lives?
Right.
And teaching us allowed her to touch more lives. And that's kind of what I'm looking at with Beneath the Surface. How do I touch more lives?
Oh, that book will do it.
Thank you. I'm so
That book will
excited
do it.
about it. I have to tell you,
That
I'm excited now. I wasn't excited. I wasn't excited when I hit send on the manuscript.
oh.
When you write a book, you've read your own work so many times.
Mm.
I was not very complimentary of the book when I hit send, because it's just you're so into looking, again, RAS stuff. You're looking for the negative. You're looking for where it doesn't
Right.
make sense.
It's a
You're looking.
critical eye.
I was
Yeah.
so like when I hit send and then I knew people were reading it, I'm like, oh, how's this gonna go?
Oh,
You know,
yes.
And then it
Yes.
came back, it started coming back positive, and then more and more and more. I was blown away, completely blown away by the positive response.
Yeah.
It was very humbling. It was very humbling. But that's where I'm at in my life now. It's like how can I expand the reach? It's not about me. It's not
Mhm.
me, but it's a message. It's permission. Please tell your story. How do we touch more people? How do we get more people to say, I now have the courage to speak my truth?
That book will do it, Robert, because you were so emotionally naked and vulnerable in your writing that it, as I said before, it causes one to stop and reflect and think and really get, and even if the trauma is obviously that it's different for everyone, it's not identical, but it truly, that book caused me so many times to just put it in my lap and process
Thank you, Kimber.
something that had been buried for way too long. And there were quite a few moments of that, even when I thought, I think I'm pretty well on top of my stuff. Well, no, 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 I'm not.
Mm, Thank you. I went through that same thought process when I was writing it. "Yeah, I'm
Sure.
good. No, you're
No,
not.
I'm not.
No, I'm not.
More work.
More work. Yeah, uncovered another
Yeah.
layer. Uncovered another
Yes.
layer. The more we can get
Beautiful.
beneath the surface.
So this is my next question is writing
Yeah.
about trauma that can be both cathartic and challenging.
Hmm.
Were there moments in writing your book when you had to, well, and you've already actually addressed this. You actually did have to step away, hit pause for months,
Yeah.
and then come back to it.
Yes. And depending on, there were certain points in the book. How do I say this? One of the beautiful things about healing is I become more and more aware at a much lower level when things are coming up within me.
Mm.
So I'm aware of when I'm getting those somatic signals. There were
Hmm.
several points in the book. Some of the things around my oldest daughter was definitely one of them. Another time was in the passing of my father, that it got really heavy. It absolutely brought up that emotion of sadness and loss and all of that. And so, and then again, how do I convey that? How do I write about that emotion? And so I literally would have to sit with that emotion and feel it, let it pass, be the gentle observer, and try and figure out a way to write it so that you would understand what I was feeling. But yeah, it brought up all kinds of stuff. It was a roller
Hmm.
coaster. It was a very, very much an emotional roller coaster throughout the
Yeah,
writing of it, which is all good.
sure.
Not always pleasant, but all good.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because mm, that was really that was another very deep part of your book. For me, I felt it
Mm,
so deeply. Um, but that vulnerability really gives everyone permission to go ahead and explore.
that's my prayer.
So I thank you for that.
You're
And many
welcome.
people do struggle with confronting their past traumas. What
Mhm.
advice would you give to someone who's afraid to take that very first step toward healing?
Mm. My advice, feel into it,
Mhm.
feel into, and when I see feel into it, I guess I'm thinking too, like we hear a lot of work about shadows, and so often we turn away from our shadows,
Mhm.
and it's those things that we want to avoid. And for me, that never worked. And the first step, I think, was having the courage to just turn and face. Instead of turning
Mhm.
away from the shadows, just turn and face. I didn't have to do anything in the beginning. In those very early stages, it was just simply that was the win. Can I just face? Can I just look at it rather than trying to run away from it, drown it, kill it, carve it out, shame it out, whatever. I think the very first step was just learning that this this thing that I had been so afraid to deal with, to look at, to experience is a part of my house. I can't cut off a part of my house just because I don't like the room. It is a
Mhm.
part of my house. So I think for me, the first step was just being aware that it's there and just learning to turn and face it and say, okay, I see you. I hear you. I might not know what to do with you yet, but I see you. I hear you. I know you're there. Now what?
Love that. Love that. Prevailing theme in my work groups is
Mhm.
that. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you.
Thank you. PTSD is often misunderstood, especially for those who have never experienced it. What do you wish more people knew about PTSD and its impact?
Hmm. Wow. What do I wish people knew about it and its impact? When somebody when somebody is experiencing the signs and symptoms of a post-traumatic stress injury, they truly do not understand what's happening. And what I wish they understood, and I'm thinking back to when I was in the midst of mine, what would have been the most helpful to me, people didn't know what to do with their own emotions while I was going through mine. They couldn't separate their emotions from mine. What I wish I had had more of, I'm not saying I didn't have it at all, but I needed that safe place to literally rattle around the room, bounce around the room, the chaos that was my world because of the rawness of my nervous system and everything that was happening. And I didn't feel safe because other people didn't understand, one, what was happening with me, and the emotions that it was bringing up in them were uncomfortable.
Mm.
And so they needed me to stop rattling around the room because it was making them uncomfortable.
That makes
That's my
perfect
story.
sense.
That's my
Yeah.
story. And I acknowledge that I don't know that to be the truth. I I say that coming from a place of having had the education that we've had for coaching and what it feels like to sit with somebody that's really struggling with their emotions and what that means to just be in contact.
Mhm.
I don't know that I could have done that back in 2007, 2008, if it would have been my loved one who was struggling. I don't know that I had the skills and tools to sit with them and just provide that safe space.
Mm.
But that's the thing that I wish they had understood about themselves. One, I had no clue. I didn't know how to manage what was happening. It wasn't, what was happening wasn't within my control at that time. It was
Right.
just my nervous system was just so hijacked. And to understand their own emotions around it.
That
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You know, I I see that with people that are dying, and that it's the other, it takes so much energy for the person who is dying to deal with the people that are coming to see them, to make them feel better about, because it's touching something in them that they are not going, this is death, this is, and we all pretend like we weren't born to die. We were, like, we're going to, it's
Exactly.
inevitable. You wouldn't think that the way we act, right? But it's our
Yeah.
own uncomfortableness. And so for some people that are actively, in the last stage of life, they want to be alone, sort, they don't want to, but they don't have the energy to make everybody else feel better in their presence. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking it kind of is the same with, here you are in your own chaos and you're bouncing off the walls and you're like, oh my God, now you're triggered and now I got to help
Yep.
make you feel better or whatever. I can't
Yep.
help you. I can't help myself.
Yep. And I said those words, absolutely
Mm,
said those words.
mm,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
and that is exactly how it felt. I can't even manage myself.
Oh, that's
Mm.
exhausting, right?
And hearing the words, well, you yelled at me. I did. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I don't know what to do. And I apologize. I get it. I don't know what to do.
right. And it's
It's
no
so,
wonder it
yeah.
brings you to that point where you'd rather choose another way out just to get
Yep.
some peace. Of
Yep.
course. Of
And truly,
course.
once you've experienced the peace,
You really
you
want it.
know, oh,
Absolutely.
it was alluring,
Sure.
very alluring at that time.
Of course there is. There are people when you hear their stories about near-death experiences and how upset they get when it's like, no, you got to go back, and they're like, oh heck no. This is amazing. This is the most love I've ever felt and the most peace. And you're finally like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. And they're like, oh, of course. And then you survive it and you got to fight with that all the time, like to get out of this chaos and pain.
Mhm.
My
The words I
goodness.
used was, I got ripped out.
Mm,
I got ripped out. And that's how it felt. It felt like a tearing. I got ripped out. Mhm. So,
ooh,
but I will tell you, I'm
tell
glad I
me.
got ripped out. I'm glad, I'm grateful that
Mhm.
I didn't choose that path, because at the time, everything felt hopeless. Truly, everything felt hopeless. Those were the times that I thought about making the great escape.
Of course.
So grateful I didn't, because man, there's so much cool stuff happening. So much cool stuff happening that I never
Thank
could have
you.
experienced.
Absolutely. Thank you
So,
for that. I am I don't mean to turn this around at me. I am a
good.
certified suicide interventionist.
Mm,
So these are the things that
mhm,
when I speak with people who survived their attempts and
mhm,
got beyond it and got the healing and that, they're so
mhm,
grateful that they did survive it.
good.
And I can personally attest to going through 3 months of an almost daily struggle with I'm out, I'm done, to finally surrendering with trust to divine.
Mhm,
I'm so grateful. And
yeah,
and that I have that to help other people because I
mhm,
get it. I
yeah,
totally get being at that place in your life where you're just like, I just really need peace. I just can't do this.
and I felt like a burden. I was such a hot
Yes.
mess. I felt like a burden
Oh,
to everybody around me. And so you start getting into that silly mindset of, they'd be better off without me, because I am just a burden to
sure.
them. And
Yeah.
it's not true. That's what's going
Mhm.
on inside. That's not the truth.
That's right. That's
Um,
right.
but it is that, the brain's only job is to keep the meat suit alive. And it's just trying to, how do I get rid of this pain? How do I get rid of the suffering?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's not accurate. It's not the truth. And I am so
Hmm.
grateful. And this is another one of those cases where I'm glad that I'm sober, because I think had I been a drinker, I don't know that I would have made as good of choices.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
alcohol plays a very large role in suicide, because we
Yeah.
don't make as good of choices when we're intoxicated. So I'm grateful that I was sober when I went through this and stayed sober throughout it, because
And
I don't know that I would have made as good of choices.
and those of us that have been touched by you are grateful as well, I might
No,
add.
Amber, thank you. Thank you.
You're
Mhm.
welcome. I speak the
Mhm.
truth.
Thank you.
In your book, you talk about the transformative tools that helped you heal.
Mhm.
Can you share with us one or two of those tools that made the biggest difference for you?
Yeah, so much of the tools. Um, I think the tool about fact and story was a pretty
Hmm.
profound one for me, and I use that all the time in my own life. You heard me say earlier, this is a story that I'm making up, so I'm acknowledging that I'm making up stories. But oftentimes when when we find ourselves kind of emotionally charged about something that's happening, the tool is to separate out what are the facts about what I know. Like whatever it is that's happening, what are the facts? And then there's the story that I'm making up about those facts. The example that I give in the book is, sending a text message to a partner, and they didn't answer. And they didn't answer for a long time.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the story in my head starts to run away with, well, clearly they're, not that interested in me, otherwise they'd answer this text. Um, they're seeing somebody else. I love them more than they love me. All of the meanings, all of the story that I make up about those facts. And at the end of the day, they left their phone in their car, right? So the whole 3 hours that I was spinning away on this and making up all these stories and suffering and literally churning my guts up over how I was being disrespected and they don't care about me and rah, they left their phone in the car.
Mm.
So when you look at that scenario and say, what are the facts? I texted, she didn't answer. It's been 3 hours. Those are the facts. Nothing more, nothing less. Everything else the mental gymnastics and twister game that I put myself through, all of those other things are all a story or different stories that I made up about those facts. And none of them were true. So
Mhm.
when I find myself getting all spun up on something, and I literally go through the soup, if I've got a client in the arena, I have them stand in a hula hoop. Stand in this hula hoop. What are the facts? Stand in this hula hoop. What's the story you're making up about those facts? So in my
Sure.
head, I stand in a hula hoop. What are the facts? XYZ. Oh, yeah, I'm kind of making up a story about all that, aren't I? And I'm kind of making myself suffer because I'm telling stories about something that I really don't know anything about, or why they did something, or why they didn't do something. I'm just spinning a yarn. And I've eliminated a lot of long-term suffering from events, little quick events in my life, because I do my best to stop telling stories about facts until I get more facts. Not to say that sometimes we're not going to be upset or angry about something. It still might be a very valid, appropriate response, depending on the
Yeah.
seriousness of the event. But if I'm just sitting here making up a story, that was a whole lot of needless suffering. That was,
Exactly.
yeah, so that was one very profound. The other one that I like is the seeing the trauma lens, the trauma lenses.
Mhm.
Trying to remember now, did I put that one in there or did I just talk about it at Summit? Um, but we all have lived experiences, and our nervous system gets programmed based upon those lived experiences. And I liken them to putting on a pair of glasses. So we now, like if I give you a red pair of sunglasses, and that's all you ever saw was red. Everywhere you looked in the world was red. Somebody else has a blue pair of sunglasses on because the information that we are receiving is being filtered through our past experience. And that's what we're interpreting. We're not necessarily interpreting all of the information, we're interpreting it after it's been filtered through our life experience. And that's where we respond from. So when we have traumas that are unhealed, it's like wearing trauma glasses. And we're trying to view, like if I tried to convince you that you see red light, means everything looks red to you. If I tried to say, but Kimber, the light is actually white. It's the presence of all color. It's actually got, you're like, no, it's red. I can
Mm.
clearly see it's red. Like, Kimber, you're filtering it through your own experience. That's not what you're hearing, or in this case, what you're seeing isn't actually what's being said. It's being filtered. Uh-uh, right?
Mm.
How do we take off those glasses? And we take off those glasses by doing our work, by going back and finishing unfinished business, doing our best to learn how do I receive the information. If I have a disagreement with a partner and all of a sudden that abandonment wound comes up, does that mean they're about to abandon me? No, it's being filtered through an old wound, childhood wound, family of origin stuff. It's being filtered through that wound, and that's what's triggering the abandonment wound. It's not because my partner's leaving, because this trauma lens is saying, right? So once I began to understand that and go, okay, what are those lenses? How am I filtering this information? What past traumas am I filtering this stuff through that's
Mhm.
creating these reactions?
Absolutely. Don't you often, I know I do. I often think about the fact that how many less divorces there would be in this world if everybody, truly, if everyone did this work
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
worked on their past traumas.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
We'd have a lot
Like
more happy people in the world.
we would have so much more awareness about ourselves, about our partners.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't jump to, and I get it. Boy, when you brought that up about you know, my partner didn't
Mm-hmm.
respond for 3 hours. Oh, me, I'm already like packing my bags. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's it, my
Yeah.
car, and I'm gonna make such a stinking show because
Yeah.
I'm guaranteed he's having an affair. I just know
Yeah.
it. I know it
Yeah.
because, and it's all about my own personal experiences from childhood and traumas, abandonment issues, having a father that was, had a girlfriend in every city, I think, you know,
Yeah.
and I mean, imagine, like, even my own issues. For years, I was anorexic. Why was I anorexic when I was in show business? I was anorexic because my mother looked like a supermodel, right? And
Mm-hmm.
yet she still couldn't keep my father from fooling around on her. So what did that teach me? Right? Like, doesn't matter how thin you are, how beautiful you are, it just doesn't matter. You're just going to get cheated on. It just doesn't matter. But maybe starve yourself to death and have some control over, like,
Yeah.
holy cow.
Yeah. We twist ourselves into knots.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. This world would be amazing if
Mhm.
everyone recognized that they need to do, probably should do some of this stuff. Or how about this, Robert? How about before you get married or embark on a full-fledged relationship, even do the typology temperament test on
Yeah.
each other, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Have some understanding. Do a genogram.
Yes,
Have some
yes.
understanding of where your partner comes from. Where do their beliefs come from? What were their family beliefs around money, about religion, about politics, about discipline, about all this stuff? Understand where your partner's coming from. Isn't it amazing that once we understand other people better, it's a lot harder to be angry with them?
Oh, 100%. My participants in my inner child healing groups, and I did them globally. I even had a client, a gentleman in India, no less. So
Nice.
this work, it
Mm-hmm.
has no boundaries. But every one of them had those moments where they said, you know what? I'm interacting with the rest of the world so differently with such awareness when I would normally get triggered by something because I processed and worked on that trigger from past trauma, I interact with someone who is clearly triggered so differently and with so much more compassion and grace that they
Mm-hmm.
literally see that person take a breath and calm down
Mm-hmm.
because you're not throwing gasoline or a match at the situation,
Yep.
and they just feel so empowered by that in such a beautiful way because they
Yeah.
realize they just had an impact on someone else's life.
Yep.
It's
So many
it's a
people just
beautiful
want to be
thing.
seen and heard. They don't feel
Yes.
heard, and they're
Oh,
screaming.
that's the
They're
biggest.
screaming because they don't feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
Seen.
Mm-hmm. It's like the bully, right? At school, most of
Mhm.
the time, just go home and see what's happening in that household, and you'll know why that kid's going to. Usually, that bully, when you confront them, will like burst
Yeah.
into tears, and that's the one who really needs support and love,
I know
for
it's kind of
sure.
cliche, but hurting people hurt people.
Of course, it's the truth.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is the absolute truth.
Yeah.
And this is why I
Mhm.
think it's imperative, Robert, that we do this work and that we reach as many people as we can, because you and I both know that we're carrying at at the least up to 16 generations of trauma.
Mhm.
So by doing this work, we're releasing past generations of their trauma
Mhm.
and healing future generations.
Cool. I'm in.
Yes,
Yeah. Yep.
exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
Well, we know how you discovered equine gestalt therapy. This is how these interviews tend to go. Like sometimes these questions that I have posed have already been answered. Let's
Yeah.
go to horses
Yeah.
because they have a unique way of helping people process emotions. Would you be willing to describe a particularly powerful moment you have
Mhm.
witnessed where a horse facilitated healing in an individual, whether it's you or someone you've coached?
Mhm. Yes. And this one always gets me, but
Mm.
um, it was the second session with a client who was 70 years old. She had been sexually abused by her father from age 4 to age 14. And she had had 2 abortions of his child. So, and she presents as just this loving, beautiful soul. Like you look at her and you go, "You're a hippie. You're a hippie." I
Hmm.
mean, that's just her air.
A
She's
vibe.
just a light. She is just a light, right? So we have the very first session, and she starts telling me this history, and I'm just like, "Holy cow!" You know. And she's carried this for 60 some odd years. And throughout the course of that first session, she talked about being detached. She talked about seeing her abuse. She was floating at
Mm.
the ceiling, and she was very disassociated, right?
Hmm.
And then partway through, she talked about how she loves music, she loves art, she loves all these things, but she doesn't do them. And then right towards the end of the session, she said, "I am so clumsy. I can tell you about an open drawer, and then I'll run into it myself. I'm just so clumsy." And all of the dots kind of lined up in my head. Like this woman left her body 60 years ago and never got back in, right? So she was coming for her second session. And all I knew is that we were going to work on integration connection, like get her back into her body. I had no clue how that was going to present. I didn't know what we were going to do. I just knew that's kind of what I wanted to focus on, that direction, right? So I used my horse Royale for this session because he was so good at liberty work, meaning sticking with me without a rope and halter on. Like he was a very, very connected horse. But he was also very introverted. So if he didn't like what was going on inside you, he would just leave. Right. So he was a really good indicator of where people were at.
Mm.
And so, but Royale, he's my oldest horse. I had him the longest. He'd been all over the country with me. He's been there, done that horse. And so I brought him into the arena before my client got there. And any of you own horse, he was just being stupid. He was calling out to the other horses of the herd. He was all anxious and I'm like, what, dude, stop it. And so it's a simple thing to correct. You start moving them around and you just get them reconnected, right? So you just reconnect. So as I'm getting Royale reconnected, my client walks in and I said, "Hey, welcome." And you know, here's what's going on. Ryle was kind of getting a little anxious about not being with the herd, and the herd's calling out, and he's kind of being a little dancy prancy. And so I'm just moving him around a little bit to get him reconnected. And so we got him around, and he's coming around good. And so I had her come in, and so now she's in the arena, and we're just starting to talk. And all of a sudden, Rael picks up his head, freezes, gone, right? Brain left. He's outside somewhere doing something. And I'm like, "Oh, he left again." And I said, "In just a minute, he's going to come back and he's going to start licking and chewing. He's going to start playing with the buckets." And right on cue, back in, oh, he's licking and chewing and playing with the buckets and poof, gone, frozen. And I went, oh. And I said to my client, he just left his body. He's all up in his head. He just left his body. Do you know what that feels like?
Mhm.
She went, yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm like, thank you, Royale. And so we did a couple other pieces of work. And then I ended that session with just having her go out in the arena and just walk and have Royale just stick with her and just followed her around. And it's called a stick to me game. You know, had her stop, back out, go forward. The whole time Royale's just doing this right with her. Then all of a sudden he'd walk away. I'm like, what happened? Where did you go? Well, I started thinking about, and I'm like, okay, feel the sand, feel your feel your feet in the arena, and then back you come, walking around. So we did that about 3 times. We got done with the session. She thanked me profusely, and then she wrote me this really long text message and about the whole experience. But she said, for the first time in my life, I now have a visual representation of what it looks like when I leave my body. She said, I can't thank you and Royale enough. I can't teach that. That was just Royale being Royale. That was just him doing his thing. And it was
Wow.
so profound. It was so profound. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So now she has this fantastic awareness
Mhm. Yeah.
that was lacking for so long because that was a strategy of hers to survive the abuse at the hands of her
Mhm.
father.
Yep.
My God, you would have to leave your
Yep.
body. You
You
would
would. You would.
to
You
survive
sure
that.
would. Yep.
Boy, do I get that.
Yeah. But he
Oh,
showed up, man. He showed up so huge that day.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. If you
I
go to my
love it.
website, he's the white horse. There's 3 of them
Okay.
that are on there, but he's the white one. He's the one I just lost February 15th.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've had a season of losses.
Yeah.
I
That
truly am
was
sorry.
but man, he was a great
Mm.
coach. He was a great coach.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
He'll send you more.
Yeah. Yep.
You
He's
know it.
still he's still coaching.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know. I know. Sometimes I look at my dog of all things. I look at her, I'll catch her staring at me in the most amazing way. It is so like, and I'm like, what are you thinking right now? Like it is if she looks so human and like
Yeah.
she is embodying so much knowledge about me, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, my love. And she's
Yeah.
truly the most perfect dog. And she came to me at one of the lowest points in my life, or, of
Mhm.
recent, meaning it was like 3 years ago. And it was total accident that she just popped into my life after so much loss. And you could not ask for a more perfect companion.
Beautiful.
Yeah, other than my horse Dakota, he's the other one,
Mhm.
Mr. Smooch. I
Yeah.
love that horse. Don't get me
Yep.
started. Oh my
Mhm.
God, talk about a soul connection. That one.
Mhm.
But him and I have a huge history. We've like done battles together in past
Mhm.
lives and stuff. Oh my gosh. He's amazing.
Nice.
Anyways, okay.
Mhm.
Oh, that was beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it
Mm,
was it was really a moving session. So,
dang. And with Gestalt, like you really like you might have sort of an idea, but you don't know because that's the beauty of Gestalt,
it
right?
is.
It's like, and there it is.
Yep, there
And
it is.
let me open up that toolbox. Okay, and then things like that. Royale, am I saying that name right?
Royale, like
Royale, that's
Casino
right, it's
Royale.
Royale.
Mhm.
He already knew.
Mhm. Yeah.
He's like, I got
Mhm.
this.
Yeah, I
You're
got
not
it.
paying attention.
Yeah, just
Look
watch.
at me.
Yeah, just watch. Just pay attention. Yeah, truly, it's all I needed to do is just pay attention to
Oh
the
my gosh.
synchronicities. Yeah, it's pretty cool because it
Oh,
was it was enlightening to me when I finally went, huh? Oh, that's what you're saying.
sorry,
Oh, I get it.
bud.
Heard you, dude. Heard you, dude. Sorry, it took twice. I hear you.
The next time he comes up and like whacks you across the face.
Yeah,
Now pay attention.
pay
This is the
attention.
last time,
Don't make me say it twice.
even though you did.
Yeah.
For those that are unfamiliar with equine gestalt therapy,
Mhm.
what would you say to someone who is curious but hesitant to try?
You're already curious. You were curious for a reason. Don't let fear stop you.
Yay.
Don't let fear stop you.
I
And
love
the
it.
people that come to my arena, it's like, if depending on their level of hesitancy, the first step might be just come meet the horses.
Mm,
We don't do any work. Just come see the place. Because it's fear of the unknown. I mean, that's the
mm,
whole thing that's holding them up. It was the thing that
hmm.
helped me up when I first started going to school. My first core with Melissa, I was truly terrified. I knew all of the traumas that went in, and they went in one at a time, and they almost killed me going in. My fear was somebody's going to pop the cork on these things. This stuff's all going to come flooding out in one piece. This could kill me. And it's fear. It's like, okay, I acknowledge your fear.
Mm,
Just come see, come meet the horses, feel the energy of the place,
mm,
see where we're going to do it, make a decision after that. Meet me, get to know me a little bit. It's
mm-hmm.
just fear and
What a
acknowledge
beautiful,
it's okay. Fear's okay. But
that's
yeah.
beautiful acknowledgement and a beautiful offering to
Mhm.
people. And it makes a lot of sense, because it is, for many, it's a term that they've never heard before. It's
Yep.
a way of processing that, for most it's talk therapy,
Mhm.
which has its place, of
Yeah,
course,
absolutely.
but this is a totally different animal, no pun intended,
No
but I
pun
like
intended.
that. I like that you make that offering. Just come out.
Just come up.
Just come out.
Yep.
No
Just say hi.
pressure.
No.
That's
I'm so
beautiful.
far because of my own. I think there would have been a time in my life where if somebody would have said no, I would have been hurt. I would have been offended.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore. I'm just not.
Oh,
The universe keeps doing it right. And if this isn't the right match, if I'm not the right match, there's other Gestalt coaches. A friend of ours
yeah,
is 10 miles down or 10 minutes away from me. Maybe, and we're not in competition,
right. We just want you
but
to feel better, right?
just get some, yes, just feel better. Find whatever it is that you're searching for. So if
Yes.
that's the first step, when I'm training horses, so often I had a plan in my head. Here's step one, here's step two. And sometimes step one was too big of a step. So now you got to take step one and break that into 4 steps. And if somebody coming through the door, if that's a normal step one, but it's too much, it's too big a leap for that person, okay, we'll break step down into 4 more steps. Can we have a phone call? Okay, come on out, meet the horses. No charge. Just come out, meet the horses. Meet me. Go with what you feel there. Just break it down into smaller bites so it's digestible for somebody. I needed it. I needed that.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
we all need that. We all want compassion. We want to all be seen and acknowledged for where we're at. Please don't ridicule
Abs-
me for how I'm feeling. They're my
Right.
feelings. So
Right. They're
acknowledge them.
legit.
They're legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a beautiful space, safe space for them to enter into without any preconceived outcomes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful because it is scary to take the first in anything. I don't care
Anything.
if it's your first time, you're like, I'm gonna bolt. I'm gonna make a run
I'm gonna
for it
bowl.
before I open that door. I'm just nope.
Yeah.
Let me, listen. I do go through that sometimes, depending on who I'm interviewing on this show,
Mhm.
where I'm like, maybe they just won't show up. Yeah, that'll be okay. And then I won't. I can get over my nerves. You know what I mean?
Yep. And here's people that they're about what they're contemplating doing is sharing some of the most sacred things to them. They're
Yeah.
either the most afraid of or they are the most ashamed of with somebody that they don't know. That's
Yeah.
scary. Yeah,
Absolutely.
would be for me too.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've
It
been
was
there.
for me too.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Indeed.
now I wrote
Indeed.
it in a book and threw it out to the world.
Yeah,
You got it all.
you can't take it back now, Robert. It's
Back
out
now,
there.
that genie is out of the bottle.
That was that was
But
beautiful and brave all at once.
yeah.
It really just
So I
wow.
think it's just so much of, I think my belief, but I think all of the coaches that we know, just accept people for where they're at, and then we'll grow from there. Wherever
Mm-hmm.
you're at is the perfect place for you to be. If that's where you're at today, awesome. It's right where you're supposed to be. We'll go
Yes.
from there. In the horse world, we say play with the horse that shows up.
Mm-hmm.
No preconceived notion of what they used to know, what they knew yesterday. You play with the horse that shows up. That's my coaching. I
Yes,
explore with the client who shows up.
indeed.
And
Thank
I
you for
love
that.
doing it. Yeah, you're welcome. I love doing it.
Yeah. Well, Robert, on that note, we're going
Mhm.
to get you out of here in a little bit after I close this session out.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for joining myself and my viewers here today and for sharing the most powerful story behind Beneath the Surface. And for those of you watching, I hope this conversation left you as inspired as I am, not only by Robert's words, but by the deep courage and conviction it takes to bring a story like this into the world. If you haven't already, be sure to grab a copy of Beneath the Surface. There's a link in the description box below. It is one of those books that stays with you long after the final page. And as always, thank you for being a part of the Backyard Horse Enthusiast community. If you love this interview, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And until next time, keep showing up with heart, stay curious, never stop seeking the stories that live just beneath the surface.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Kimber. Truly, thank you. It's been an
Be
honor.
well. Be well. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.